talk Tottenham Hotspur now. They've spent a lot of money, £237 million so far. Sandro Tonali, club record, £100 million. Mateus Fernandes, £85 million. And Mark, De Zerbi has said that there's a bomber coming. Who's the bomber?
We're not sure, in all honesty. But when you describe it as a bomber, generally means it's going to be a big hitter, big fee, a juggernaut of a player. Could it be that man, Cody Gakpo? Very possibly. What we know is that there is interest from Tottenham Hotspur to Liverpool with regards to the player. No formal club-to-club contact at this stage. However, he is absolutely on the radar of Spurs during this summer's transfer window. We know that they are looking now, after spending so much time at the beginning of the window strengthening things defensively, they're now looking in the final third, and they need players out wide and up front to really give them a little bit more juice. And you'd have to say, Cody Gakpo, when you look at their current options up front, you'd have to say he would absolutely be someone that would add a lot to that Spurs attack. One of the great things about Cody Gakpo is his versatility. He can play on the left, he can play on the right, he can play through the middle as a false nine. And these days, if you've got one player that can play in multiple roles, that can be a massive boost to your squad, particularly with the number of games that you play and, of course, injuries in the modern game. Let's take a look at the comparison then between Cody Gakpo and a number of those other players at Tottenham that play in those similar kind of positions. And you can see immediately, big chances created. He stands out, assists there, he leads the way. Not quite as many goals as Richarlison, but he's certainly stacking up the numbers. Obviously, we know that Dominic Solanke had an injury-plagued season in the last campaign, so his numbers not looking as effective as perhaps they would do otherwise.
But when you look at that, Mark, doesn't that say Spurs need some help? They need some reinforcements?
Absolutely. Definitely. 100%. And that's where they're going to have to spend yet more money to try and strengthen that side. I think it's clear for everyone to see that this summer has been a summer where they are backing the head coach. They are spending the big bucks. All of the work that Daniel Levy did as the chairman to build a competitive Tottenham Hotspur that could generate money off the pitch, create their ability to go and spend big in the transfer window, go and match wages for other comparable sides in the Premier League. They're now doing that. And therefore, this is the summer where you look at Spurs and go, right, are they going to get back to where they were when they were getting to Champions League finals and challenging for Premier League titles? It certainly feels like this is a swell of a good feeling at the moment with regards to what's going on. Be interesting to see what happens. On the flip side of things, Liverpool won't want to lose a key player. And when you look at their wingers, Chiesa, Rio and Gamoa, Cade Gordon, Victor Munoz, Jeremy Frimpong, you'd have to say that probably Cody Gakpo is the number one. He's the key one.
But didn't the Liverpool fans kind of fall out of love with Gakpo last season?
You'd have to ask them that, in all honesty. He's a player that's always given 100%. He's shown in flashes what he can be. Maybe the level of consistency they haven't quite seen, and that maybe is a frustration, because when you're a Liverpool winger, you have to perform 9 times out of 10. You can have an off day every now and then, but the standards are right up there. Maybe he hasn't fulfilled them on a consistent basis. But you would have to say, looking at that list of players that we've just discussed there, he is still the number one. Andoni Iraola wants wingers that can play on both sides. He doesn't want a winger that's just a left winger or just a right winger. He wants someone that can play both sides and cause problems both sides. The wing play is so key to the success of an Andoni Iraola side. At Bournemouth, he'd have 4, 5, 6 wingers in the squad because he knew he'd utilise them, they'd all get game time, he'd swap them around. At 60, 70 minutes, he'd freshen up the wide men. So they are going to be key. At Liverpool, I think he would want 4 wingers with a 5th younger winger. So that would be their model as they go into the season, to have 4 top quality wingers and a younger one. Rio and Gamoa would probably be the young one, and then he'd want 4 key wingers.
OK. Same said for De Zerbi. Is he going to sign Savinho, who, again, can play on the left and on the right?
Well, Savinho is a player who's been of interest for Spurs for a number of transfer windows preceding Roberto De Zerbi joining, and Spurs have explored a deal to try to sign him in this transfer window. City are aware that Savinho wants to depart in this transfer window. I think looking ahead to this season, albeit with a new manager, his first team opportunities, his opportunity of minutes, seems like he's not going to get those opportunities at City this year, but he signed a new contract last summer, so Spurs are aware that a deal would be expensive because City are in a great position because of his contract situation. I would be amazed if Cody Gakpo went to Spurs in this transfer window. It just feels like a deal that Liverpool wouldn't want to sanction in this window unless they can bring in a big name. Some of the names we've been discussing, the likes of Barcola in this transfer window, because I think Antonio Iraola will want an experienced player there, considering all the turnover in staff and players over the course of the last few years. A player there with Premier League experience, a player who has proven he can succeed at Liverpool. I think the frustration from the fans towards Gakpo, Liverpool fans know better than I do, but I think there was an overall frustration just the direction things went last season. There was so much excitement going into last season after spending the money they did to get Alexander Isak, to get Florian Wirtz, to get Kirkes from Bournemouth, to get Frimpong from Bayer Leverkusen, and it didn't work out last season. I think he'd want to keep a player like Gakpo there unless they could sign a big star. But in terms of Spurs, they are looking for a forward because looking at the numbers Mark portrayed there aren't enough goals in that team. Defence, you think that defence looks brilliant this season. Midfield, stockpiled, brilliant midfielders there. Forward line, Kulusevski's missed a year of football. Maddison pretty much missed a year of football. Solanke has been injury prone at times, didn't get those minutes last year. Richarlison, his future may be elsewhere. They need to get someone in. Whether Savinho would be the player who could solve all their issues, we wait to find out.
Indeed. You mentioned Barcola. Let's talk Barcola now, because we've reported that Liverpool will open talks with PSG over a potential deal for Bradley Barcola. As things stand, though, PSG haven't received an offer that they believe is suitable for the France international. Well, European football expert Julien Laurent thinks the deal could happen.
In Paris right now, if he wants to leave or if somebody wants to come and get him, no problem. I think the door would open at the right price. And the problem right now is the price from a Liverpool point of view and a PSG point of view is just too different. And the gap between the two is too far. I think for PSG, they're looking at 140, 150 million euros, which is a lot of money for a player of any kind. But, you know, for Barcola, probably especially, at Liverpool, we're more looking at 70 to 80, maybe 90 pushing with some bonuses. So that gap is big for now. It might not be as big in a couple of weeks' time or even in a week's time. But for now, I think the issue is more on the valuation of the players that PSG have on one side and Liverpool have on the other side.
All right, Mark. So Liverpool have got this massive Salah-sized hole on the right. Barcola plays on the left, so he's not the stopgap, is he? He's not the one that fills that hole.
As I said earlier, I think Antonio Iraola will want a player that can play on both sides. And you're right, most of what Bradley Barcola has done at PSG has been operating on the left-hand side. But they do have a huge hole to try and fill in those attacking bursts. But what better place to go than to someone who's just won back-to-back Champions League and 13 major trophies whilst at PSG. He is a serial winner. He knows how to get the job and has been a part of a very, very successful squad over the last few years, who's won multiple league titles as well as had success at the highest club level with the Champions League wins. It feels like this fits. You'd say to Liverpool fans right now, we need something to light up our summer transfer window. We need a marquee signing. We need someone to get behind and start to get excited about. We've got a new head coach in Antonio Iraola. We've got a new way of playing that's, in theory, going to be really exciting to watch. We need to make sure we have those players that can orchestrate exactly what the boss wants to do. And Bradley Barcola would absolutely tick all those boxes. He's a young player, 23 years old, huge success already at a very young age. We know that there is interest, but there's been no club-to-club talks between Liverpool and PSG at this stage. I think the key thing is the valuation. As Julian said there, they're looking at 140 to 145 million euros. Liverpool aren't at that price tag. You know, why would they go in and say, we want to offer you 100 million euros when PSG are going to say, well, it's rejected, that's nowhere near. So Liverpool have to try and have those conversations when they feel the time is right and say, look, this is where we are at, realistically. You've got a player that doesn't want to be at PSG. He's not had as much game time as he likes. He's interested in coming to us. Now let's do a sensible deal. Let's try and get to a point where we can both be happy here. It's just posturing. You know, PSG are not going to turn around and say, yeah, we want 115 million pounds for him. They're going to say we want 150 million pounds and then settle at around 120, 125. And the same for Liverpool. They're going to start low and then increase to a point that they're comfortable with. But it does feel like this is an interesting situation. It feels like there is going to be dialogue between the two clubs at some stage, and you get the feeling that Barcola to Liverpool is a deal that could happen, It feels like it might happen. You wouldn't want to say it's definitely going to happen, but it certainly feels like this is the direction of travel for Liverpool. There's not many big marquee signings out there, but he would certainly be that one.
He certainly would. But do they have to think about reinforcements at the back, though?
No is the answer we are being told. I know a lot of people are saying, well, Joe Gomez is out injured. You've got a Virgil van Dijk who's well into his 30s. You know, is he going to play every single game? Obviously, Giovanni Leone came in last season, young player, injured early on. You know, real big blow for Liverpool and the player. And Jeremy Jacquet is another player that's come into Liverpool this summer, but has been injured as well. So you're looking at a number of key defensive options that are all injured. And you're saying, well, hang on a second, can they go into a season with Champions League football, trying to compete for the Premier League without having that strength in depth? My understanding is Liverpool will not go into the market to sign a player for the next 4 to 6 weeks. You know, what do you spend 50, 60 million pounds on a defender, and then in 6 weeks' time when everyone's fit and back, what's he going to do? Sit on the bench? Sit in the stands? Doesn't make financial sense. They're just going to have to ride through the storm and then wait for their players to come back, and then they will be at full strength at the back.
Mark, you know Iraola well. Should Liverpool fans be excited?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. The key to Andoni Iraola being successful at Liverpool is about the buy-in from the players. Can they get the right players in the transfer market? Can the players that are at the club all buy into what he wants to do? If they can be hugely entertaining to watch. There will be a real connection to the fan base, and they can go and challenge and compete at every single level in every single competition. But it's all about the players buying into the manager. At Bournemouth, he had success season upon season upon season, and then took them to 6th, got Europa League football, having sold £200 million worth of players. They sold Antoine Semenyo to Manchester City and then didn't lose a game after he went. You know, this is phenomenal stuff. But doing that at Bournemouth is one thing. Doing it at Liverpool, where the expectation is absolutely at the ceiling, is something completely different. If I could go and watch Liverpool games for the next 12 months, I absolutely would, because I think it could be a really exciting time. But then at the same time, you have to deliver results, full stop.
Absolutely. Now, Robbie Keane played for both Liverpool and Spurs, who we've been discussing. And he's the focus of the latest edition of our Transfer 360 series, which lands tomorrow. Now, it's centred... Hello again, it is the transfer window, which means Chelsea are busy. Always happens, obviously. But there's been a shift, gentlemen. James, Jordan Henderson, Danny Welbeck. We've been crying out for experience for Chelsea. They're now doing that, being criticised for it. I don't know why. What do you think?
863 Premier League appearances between the pair. So much experience in a very inexperienced dressing room. This is a remarkable shift in transfer strategy from Chelsea. It's an admission that mistakes have been made over the course of the last 4 years. And yes, they've signed very talented, very exciting young players, some of whom have proven, like Cole Palmer, to be really, really good players. Moises Caicedo, that was a really good signing as well. So is Enzo Fernandez. But at the same time, that dressing room needs these players who know what it takes to win trophies. They've won Premier Leagues, they've won Champions Leagues. It's going to be fascinating to see what role they play on the pitch this season. But what this also shows is with Xabi Alonso as a manager rather than a head coach, the impact he's had in this transfer window already. Even looking at Maxence Lacroix, who's 26 years of age, he signed a long-term contract, but it just shows you the club realise that they need to tweak their transfer strategy. And I think if you were a Premier League rival...
It up. That's not a tweak. This is ripping it up, isn't
I think as a rival, you'd be concerned now because you realise, right, this new ownership group have had 4 years in the Premier League. They've realised what works, what doesn't work, and now they're very serious. They've got a very talented head coach, manager, who knows what it takes to win trophies, which he's done at Bayer Leverkusen, and now he's building a dressing room and a squad, and some of those players in that squad have won things, and you'd think the plan at Chelsea is sustained success, which is something they've not really achieved over the course of the last 20 years or so. Under Abramovich, they've won a Premier League trophy, then they'd sacked a manager and had a period of instability. They're building a squad now where they want to dominate on a consistent basis. And I think if you are a Premier League rival, you should be concerned because Chelsea know what they're doing now.
Do they know what they're doing with Trevor Chalobah?
Yes, they do. He is leaving Stamford Bridge, a player that joined Chelsea at just 8 years old. 20 years later, he's gone through the academy into the first team, was such a significant player for them last season. 47 appearances. He was a key player at the back amidst a number of injury problems for Chelsea last season, but he has played his final game for the Blues and is going to be joining up with a former Chelsea midfielder in Cesc Fabregas. He's going to Como in Serie A. The deal is worth £25.7 million with a further £5.1 million in potential add-ons. Personal terms have been agreed between Como and Trevor Chalobah. And like we say, brings to an end, a really amazing journey. Chelsea have one of the best, if not the best academy. Under Roman Abramovich, they invested millions and millions of pounds into coaches, infrastructure, the training facilities to develop young players that will go through the system and into their first team. And we've seen that on a number of levels. He's also a player, obviously was involved with England over the course of the World Cup, just the one appearance in that French 6-4 win, the fourth place playoff. And it's a shame for Chelsea fans to see Trevor leave, but everything has to come to an end. Como, his new club.
Chelsea going to do more business?
There will be plenty more business. I think the focus will be on outgoings as well, because they've spent a huge amount of money in this transfer window. They're still in an agreement with UEFA whereby they need to comply with UEFA's slightly stricter rules when it comes to squad cost ratio. So they need to be very careful, and they are going to be very careful. There's a number of players who will depart. Xabi Alonso was asked at the weekend how many centre-backs that he needs in his squad. He said 4 or 5, and before Chalobah departed, they had 10. So clearly there's work to do when it comes to outgoings. But I still think at the same time they'll be looking to be active in the transfer window as well. There's been conversations that have been going on for a long time now of Rayo Vallecano around their left-back, Pep Chavaria. They want to try to sign him, but they don't want to be priced out of a deal. They feel like that maybe the goalposts have been moved in that transfer negotiation. So I think they may look to sign a left-back because Martin Cucurella has departed. Chelsea have actually made some big sales already in this transfer window. Andre Santos, one of the players who's gone for £50 million. I do wonder if they'll keep an eye on that goalkeeper situation. I think Chelsea fans are very surprised that's not been resolved over the course of the last few years. They don't have a world-class goalkeeper. Robert Sanchez, I think he's been suffering a bit of a niggle. He's not featured in pre-season so far. Philip Jorgensen will be allowed to depart. Mike Penders has come in as a goalkeeper from Strasbourg. Maybe he'll compete for the number 1 jersey. But I wonder if Chelsea will keep an eye on that goalkeeper situation and see if there are any market opportunities. Last summer, they tried to sign Mike Maignan, the French goalkeeper from AC Milan. That didn't lead to anything. But I think that is one to keep an eye on. Left back, goalkeeper. But I think they look pretty strong heading into this campaign. There'll be plenty of sales, so keep your eyes out because there'll be players flying everywhere over the course of the next month or so.
What are they going to do with Mykhailo Mudryk, Mark?
Yeah, really good question. Of course, they've spent nearly £90 million on him in the January of 2023. Last played a competitive game for Chelsea in November 2024. So it's almost been 2 years since he featured for Chelsea. Now, of course, you'd imagine that they'd want to get him out on loan, get game time. He signed a long-term contract when he joined the club. And it would be a case of let's get him some minutes. Let's get him back into the mode of playing competitive football, see how he feels, see how he is, and then we'll go from there. They are protected in that sense that if he does go out and play really well, then, of course, they go, well, we'll have you back. You're the player that we knew you were and invested so heavily in. 2 things I just want to pick up on, actually. Roberto De Zerbi, who, of course, worked with Mykhailo Mudryk at Shakhtar Donetsk, has spoken so fondly about Mykhailo over the years. And the 2 quotes that I really quite love. One was, I think he can be a Ballon d'Or winner. That was something that Roberto De Zerbi said. And he also said when he was at Shakhtar, if he does not get to the highest level, I will regard it as a personal failure. Speaking again about this young Mykhailo Mudryk, who he thought had all the potential and obviously ended up joining Chelsea for £90 million. So he sort of fulfilled that destiny that Roberto De Zerbi predicted. But I don't think he's on the radar of Tottenham. But it's a love affair that would work for so many people connected. Mykhailo and Roberto, they're very close, and they were at Shakhtar Donetsk. But whether he's what Tottenham need right now, as he's a bit of a gamble because he's not played competitive football. But I'd imagine that, at some stage over the next 4 weeks, he will find a club and get out and start playing games again.
Is the most significant signing for Chelsea, though, a bloke called Austin McPhee, who people are going, who is that?
Well, people online have been going wild about this. The fact that Chelsea have poached Aston Villa's set-piece coach, Austin McPhee, who's done a brilliant job at Aston Villa. The season before last, Aston Villa scored more goals from set pieces than any other club, and he's joined up with Chelsea on their pre-season tour. We saw Mahalo Mudryk and Danny Welbeck a few moments ago. Well, Austin McPhee is there as well. So it's not the only significant bit of business between Villa and Chelsea in this transfer window. We know Garnacho's gone the other way. Morgan Rogers for £117 million has gone to Chelsea. But this could be an absolutely crucial bit of business. Aston Villa fans were devastated. I think he had his own chant from the Villa fans as well. That's how effective he was. I think when you look at the way football's gone and when you look at how Arsenal dominated with set pieces last season, this could be absolutely invaluable bit of business that Chelsea have done. So Austin McPhee, remember the name,